During the breeding season, the male pileated woodpecker will overcome the inertia of a stationary position to drum on the trunk of a tree up to 12,000 times a day for the purposes of territory delineation, feeding, and courtship. That's done with a force equivalent to you running into a brick wall at 15 miles per hour, 12,000 times a day, face first. From Dr. Evan R. Schwab's acceptance speech of the 2006 Ig Nobel Prize for exploring why woodpeckers don't get headaches.
Welcome to The Wandering Naturalist, a Three Rivers Park District podcast. I'm Angela, she, her, a wildlife biologist with Three Rivers Park District.
And I'm Brandon, he, him, an interpretive naturalist with Three Rivers Park District. Three Rivers Park District manages over 27,000 acres of parks on lands that are the ancestral and contemporary homeland of the Dakota people in suburban Hennepin County and surrounding areas.
So join us as we wander from park to park and discuss your stories of the past, the nature in our present, and how they have shaped our parks.
Come wander with us,
The Wandering Naturalist.
As we heard in the teaser, woodpeckers have thick heads that can withstand a lot of force. But before we get into that, we've got something really exciting, right, Angela?
It's January, which means, this is officially another season.
I know. It's been almost a month since we released the last of season 6. Though for recording for us, it's been almost a year.
It feels, but really, again, I was just saying this to the producers too, like, you walk into the studio and you're just like, I feel like I was just here last week. Mm-hmm. Like, even though that amount of time has passed for us recording, being able to connect with our listeners, our topics, our guests, like, that's all throughout the year. So it never feels like we're really away from it.
Absolutely. And we just get to keep talking to really neat people, learning really neat things. So I'm excited for another year of wandering and learning. I'm really excited for some of our topics. I should say all of our topics we have lined up this year.
You probably have some favorites.
Oh, yes. But I think I'm excited to learn about all of them.
Do you have any really hints you can drop of like a favorite you're anticipating?
Oh,
Little teaser?
I think I'm really excited to get slimed this year.
Yes.
That's going to be fun.
Slimy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so to clarify, this is season 7 for those keeping track, because I know for me, people ask and I've lost track. So season 7.
I know. It's a lot of seasons. As a reminder to you, our listeners, we love getting topic suggestions from you. A lot of our topics this year were sent in by you. So you can always email them to us at wanderingnaturalist@threeriversparks.org.
And I would argue, too, that not just topics, but people.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
If you feel like you have a nature story to tell, you know of someone, we love being connected to these folks. So please conclude that in your ideas as well.
We would love that. It is January. We are starting off season 7, and we wanted something to rival the explosive sound, the excitement of fireworks ringing in the new year. And we thought, what can match the volume of that other than a woodpecker drumming on a piece of metal in your house?
I would also argue the whole talk about headaches. Maybe some people in the new year, after a night of celebrating, are feeling a bit of a headache.
It's very possible. And I know one of the things I get asked about a lot is, why is that woodpecker pecking at my house? And so we'll definitely get into that. But first, do you have any special fond memories of woodpeckers?
I was trying to think back. I grew up along the Minnesota River, and I remember, I can't remember what age I was, but walking through our backyard in our house, and we had like a big, I think it was a cottonwood tree, and there was just this huge bird that was on it and then took off. And I just remember being like completely in awe of the wingspan of this woodpecker. And I had to know what it was, and I had to dig further into it. And it ended up, it was a pileated woodpecker.
Yeah.
But at that time, as a young kid, I wasn't into birds. I didn't have anyone teaching me that, but it is still something that like I can paint that picture and that curiosity in my brain. It's set in stone. One of those capstone memories that's kept in my vault of important things.
That makes sense. They are incredible birds, and the size is just, it's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. I think for me, I was about 14 or 15, and this was during one of my mini birding phases I went through as a child through adulthood. And so woodpeckers, I think, are always one of the first thing beginning birders start to learn to identify.
Sure, yeah.
They're pretty commonly seen. Some are just difficult enough to make it a challenge, but this was a red-bellied woodpecker. Mm. I love them. They've got that big red mohawk-like stripe across their head with a black and white checkerboard body. And everybody thinks they're a red-headed woodpecker.
Yeah.
But red-headed woodpeckers, the name was
It's
already
not a
taken by.
true all redhead.
Yeah, it's not entirely red, but it is pretty red. And they're named because they have a very difficult to see red patch on their belly.
It's not so obvious.
There.
It's not
it's
obvious.
really hard to see. And I was determined to see it because I had never seen it anymore. And so, I spent, I don't know how many hours watching my bird feeder with binoculars.
I have to see this.
Yes, every time the red belly would fly up, I'd pull my binoculars up and let me take a look at that belly. And I never saw it, and I never saw it.
You didn't get into a ghillie suit or something and try to ambush it from behind a shrub or something?
It was 95 degrees outside. I wasn't going to do that.
Probably
no,
not.
because again, this was, in Florida, which I happen to mention every single episode. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I do. But yes, I finally, after hours, saw that red belly, and I was so excited. And I was telling my family all about
They're
it.
like, we don't care.
Yeah, they
What
did
are you
not share
talking
my
about?
excitement. But I was excited. I still get excited when I see that little red flash. So yes.
So you're trying to inspire some hope if people haven't seen the red belly on the red belly. And I'd say this is one that's pretty common. Like I know to my suet feeder. So maybe we can challenge
you gotta look
others.
carefully, but you can see it.
Have you seen the red belly?
Since then, I've learned a lot more about woodpeckers, and honestly, my fascination with them has only grown. They have amazing adaptations that work together, allowing them to really be the only insect-dependent bird that can survive Minnesota winters.
Yeah.
We have a lot of birds that will eat insects, but eat other things as well. Most of our insect-dependent birds that I know of migrate south. So they can do that, which is really cool. They may work with fungi to create perfect spots for their nest, which then become important homes for many other creatures. They're impacted by our actions, which we particularly see with red-headed woodpeckers. They're really a bird of interconnectedness. They connect the forest together. And so I love that and how you can so easily see those connections. So for our first episode, Angela and I will explore how all of their adaptations work together to allow it to survive around 1,200 G-forces when pecking without brain damage as it searches for food or creates a place to nest.
Our second episode features Dr. Jorge Tomasevic, research coordinator at Austral University of Chile, discusses the surprising findings he found when researching how pileated woodpeckers use suburban landscapes as homes.
Finally, in episode 3, Dr. Elena West from the University of Minnesota joins us to discuss the red-headed woodpecker, how our actions have caused their numbers to decline, and what is being done to help. Angela, are you ready to dive into the
Let's dive
exciting world of
in. Which one
woodpeckers?
do you want to go on first?
I don't know.
There's a lot of them to cover.
There is, and they have so many amazing adaptations. And, sometimes you can start at one and talk about it and then start at the other and talk about it. But I think the thing I like about woodpeckers is these adaptations all work together.
Yeah.
They're strongly
So you want to
connected.
start it at a sense from like the top down.
I think so.
And we should give the disclaimer, like these are generalizations about adaptations. That again, as we've always learned and explored with our topics, like it's not a cookie cutter thing. Like there is a diverse spectrum and range of adaptations, but just for the purpose of the podcast,
we're doing, general woodpeckers. Most
stuff.
woodpeckers
General
have
stuff.
these, but we are going to talk about, for instance, having 4 toes later on. There are 3-toed woodpeckers, so things like that. Why don't we start with the tongue?
Okay.
Have you ever seen a woodpecker tongue?
Yeah, I mean, not like I'm close, but pictures and videos. Now maybe this would be another ghillie suit opportunity to get up and close, but
I got to see it at Eastman. It was eating suet, and it used its tongue to clean its face.
oh,
It was so weird.
wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's probably
but
like
really weird.
once in a lifetime kind
It's
of.
happened a couple times, so just come visit Eastman.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
we've
just
got
gotta
those nice
be-
rocking chairs right in front of the suet
Okay, so
feeders.
what is it that you enjoy about the uniqueness of their tongue? Obviously, if it can be cleaning its head with its tongue, we don't picture birds having tongues in general
Yeah, and
because we don't see them.
Right, and they all have tongues, but as far as I know, woodpeckers and hummingbirds are the only birds that can stick their tongues out. So while that's normal for us, for a lot of animals, that's kind of abnormal, and especially for birds. And it's not just that woodpeckers can stick their tongues out. It is long. It can be up to 1/3 of a woodpecker's length, depending on the species. So, I mean, that would be the equivalent, I suppose, of your tongue being almost as long as your arm.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
that'd be a little. I don't understand how we would function. So to think of a woodpecker and how they utilize that and where does that tongue go? But before we get to that, because that's my next favorite kind of like how they can utilize this tongue, is that northern flickers are the woodpecker in North America with the longest tongue.
Yes, which is 2 inches long.
Yeah.
Which is really incredible. And they need that really long tongue because they're eating ants.
So again, one thing I want to touch on before we dive into like how they wrap it in is that their tongues are not all the same across woodpeckers. And this is what I found really interesting is that there are different types of tongues.
Sort of. The ends of the tongue can be kind of different.
Yes, that's what I was reading, which I never again thought of.
So all woodpeckers, the tongue isn't soft like ours. It's kind of hard, almost spear-like, and then they're covered in barbs at the very tip. And some woodpeckers, like northern flickers, which are really digging their tongue into ant nests to scoop up ants, they have less barbs and a stickier tongue compared to maybe a pileated woodpecker, which is eating insects from trees. It has more barbs and not quite as sticky as a tongue because it doesn't need to kind of snake through these long ant nests. And I think what's really fascinating about that is I was always under the impression, I think a lot of people were, was that it's spear-like, so it can spear into the insect, and the barbs are like the barbs on a fishing hook. It kind of hooks onto the insect and pulls it out and eats it. The problem is nobody's ever seen a woodpecker trying to get a stuck insect off its tongue. And so what probably is more likely happening for these is they actually act like garden rakes.
Okay, yeah.
So they snake it into the hole where the insect is, and then the barbs are like a rake that pull it out into its mouth so it can eat it.
Yeah. The other thing I was reading too about especially our sapsuckers, and so they are lapping up essentially the sap, and so that their tongues act as more of like capillaries.
Yeah.
That was really cool to read about, and so like using, again, physics, surface tension, the same way like how water gets up trees, but essentially they can do that to lap up sap.
Yeah, which is truly amazing.
So again, just showing that diversity that, yes, they're all longer tongues and different, but even across from species to species. But the thing I want to get to is like, where does this tongue go? Because the tongue splits in front of the spine and wraps around either side of the bottom of the head. If you have a chance, Google this so you can look up pictures because it's hard. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's like it like comes out through the base of it is like out through their one nostril.
So when they first hatch, about halfway up the back of their head is where it's attached.
Yeah.
The tongue. And then as they get older, it continues to grow towards the top of the head and back down. And at a certain age, the end of their tongue
like
will actually be into their nostril.
Inside of them. Not like this isn't something you
can't see it because it's under the skin. It's under the muscles. It's
okay. So it's wrapped around the head, and then it's like it's got some kind of base. Right? And that is like this wrapping around the head is made possible because of a specialized bone. And this is where I got super excited because we can link it to humans. It's called the hyoid bone.
Hey, did you hear that?
The loon.
I know, the loon is back, and it's January.
Yeah, loon is jealous that we're talking about other beaks
Yet
and tongues.
Another bird, and not the loon. One of these years, the loon will get its
just
episode.
Keep holding out hope. But yes, this is our nature word, and this is something that humans have as well. We have
Can you pronounce it again?
I'm hyoid.
Okay, I thought it was hyoid.
Hyoid?
I honestly have no idea.
I mean, I've given the disclaimer, do not, I pronounce things how they make sense to me. Mm-hmm. I could totally be doing it wrong. But what's cool about this is it's the only bone that we have in our body that isn't connected to any other bones. You know, the song like the hip bone's connected to the spine. Well, this is a bone that's not connected to anything. It's the only bone in our human body.
So it's just at the base of our tongue?
Yeah, so that's what they say it's responsible for us to be able to like not choke in our sleep is one of those things. So there's other things that it functions for, but that's a big one. So this is something that woodpeckers, other animals have, but it's unique in them just because of its shape. And what's cool about hyoid is it's the Greek word for hyoides.
Okay.
And what that means is it's shaped like an upsilon. Am I saying that wrong? What is
that the E-P-I?
No, it's the Greek letter. It's the Greek U in the alphabet.
Is it epsilon?
Upsilon.
Okay.
They're saying it right. Okay. The upsilon. So again, you learned some Latin, Greek here.
I always think of it as more of like a Y shape. But epsilon kind of matches that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So yes, this is essentially acts as an attachment for your tongue and your lower jaw muscles. So in woodpeckers, it wraps all the way around that head, giving the tongue something to anchor to. And again, there's fabulous animations and videos to see this online.
And how I usually describe it is if you think about that hollow space under your lower jaw and you can kind of feel your bones, their tongue goes there, but then it splits in the hyoid bone too. Splits and goes around the spine and then it reconnects back up at the back of the head and starts growing in the nostril. And what's important about that is that the tongue can then move up and down it. So when the woodpecker is flying, when it's pecking, the tongue is kind of up inside its mouth. When it's trying to catch an insect, the tongue moves down and extends out, and then it goes back down. And part of the importance of this bone and this tongue is it appears to protect the brain. So again, it's hitting your head against a wall all day, every day. Best case scenario, you're going to get a really bad headache. Worst case scenario, if you do it with the force of the woodpecker, you're probably going to die. So how do woodpeckers do this? It's something we're still trying to entirely figure out. But the tongue probably acts a bit like a seatbelt shock absorber, and it can tense along this hyoid bone, and that allows it to kind of hold the head in place. So when the head pecks, it can stop almost immediately without continuing forward. So physics-wise, somehow that helps with the force going to the head. And that also absorbs some of the shock that would normally go into the brain.
Yeah. It was interesting. There's a bunch of scientific articles, and there was a study just recently, like in 2022, that was talking about, this whole, like, we should study woodpeckers so we can figure out how to prevent concussions because they must absorb it. But they actually did like a slow motion camera thing where it showed that there really wasn't like an absorption thing, that it was more just like a hammer.
Yes. And so I read about that, and I
was just like, what? There has to be more to it than just that.
I think there is. I think that right now what's going on is for a long time we have thought, all right, they're absorbing force, preventing concussions, so we can make football helmets that work like it and prevent it. The football helmets based on woodpecker designs aren't working that well. I think some other people are like, no, you're completely wrong. It's this, that it stops just like a hammer, and that's why they aren't getting the force. I know of other studies like a CT scanner. When the woodpecker was pecking, it was taking a lot of images of it, and that was able to show that the force was almost entirely stopping at the beak, with very little going into the skull or the brain, because the beak is built a special way. My opinion is that they're all a little bit right.
Yeah, it's all playing into it.
Yeah, I think there's multiple adaptations that are working together. I think everyone's like, oh, I found the one way it really works right now.
They're trying to be cutting edge.
Exactly.
But it's all
and
super
it really
cool.
Is probably
and
some kind of
that's how science works. Like, it's a continuation of a study and learning and just more questions. But that brings us to, I think, the next one, which is the beak.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're known for their sharp chisel-like beak. I mean, because it pecks into trees at up to 25 times per second. And the deceleration of their head can produce up to 1,200 G-forces. So when it pecks and it stops, 1,200 times the force of gravity is pushing against their head and their brain. An astronaut, for comparison, experiences 3.5 G-forces during a rocket launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if we go back to our Ig Nobel Prize speech at the beginning, the G-forces experienced are like hitting a wall face first at 15 miles per hour, 25 times a second.
And that's just one time. From what I was reading, it can be upwards of like they're doing this pecking motion at about 12,000 times a day.
Yeah.
So like it's not just this one time smack.
It's truly
a lot of
amazing.
repetition.
There's actually three reasons we think that their beak can withstand this and help their brain withstand it, because it's built in 3 layers. And all bird beaks are built in 3 layers, but there's some special adaptations woodpeckers seem to have that others don't. So all birds, the outer layer of the beak, the part we see, is made of keratin.
Same thing as our nails, yeah.
Exactly. And it constantly grows like our nails do. So that allows a woodpecker beak to constantly stay sharp as it's pecking away.
Oh, yeah, because it's wearing down over
Absolutely.
time.
And so just like your nails grow, theirs is growing. But what makes woodpecker beaks keratin a little different is that it's arranged and looks like a zigzag pattern of scales almost. And they're a lot more wiggly than the individual quote-unquote scales of keratin on other bird beaks. And so that zigzag pattern seems to help them absorb shock better. So some evidence for the fact that beaks must be doing something other than the fact they just stop so suddenly.
Yeah.
And then they have a layer underneath that. And so that middle layer, and again, all birds have this, but it's called a foam layer. It's bone that's very, very porous.
Okay.
A lot of holes in it. It's a holy layer. The woodpecker's foam layer appears to have more holes, be more porous than other birds. It's the reason some scientists think that is it may allow force to go through that foam layer into special shock-absorbing bones that are in their skull right behind the beak.
Right.
So it's almost like built-in springs.
Yep.
Is kind of what some of the thoughts are.
But it's got to have some strength to it, and that's where the third layer is hard, dense bone. So that combined with all the other ones is really making it good at shock absorbing.
Yeah.
all around and regrowing and being strong enough.
Really, between the beak and the tongue, that's providing or appears to be providing a lot of protection for the woodpeckers to kind of help keep them from getting concussions potentially. Though we talked about how, the sudden stopping they can do as their neck muscles tense and probably combined with the tongue, that might help prevent some of the force from going back into their head. There's also some other studies that seem to suggest woodpeckers very well may just get concussions like humans do, but they might be a lot better at healing those concussions.
Right.
And so they don't suffer long-term effects that humans do from concussions.
I always think of it too, like a woodpecker's brain is a lot smaller compared to I think again, we project our own if we run into a wall, that's what would happen. But again, these are much smaller brains, smaller skulls. So it's different. The one question I have, and this is something that I've always thought about, is do woodpecker ears? Ears are always weird on birds and not something people often discuss. So they do have inner ears and have a narrow shape that's narrower than other birds, which may be, again, to limit some of that vibration that is caused by all the pecking. And so I often think woodpeckers, again, we'll get into this, I think, with later, but how do woodpeckers find insects?
Yeah.
Are they listening for them? I've never seen a woodpecker hold its ear up to the tree and be like, where's my food?
And I think we cover that in, our second episode that we ever did about owls a little bit?
Yeah.
Where birds have really good hearing.
It's just used differently.
But it's really good hearing for specific frequencies. And so woodpeckers can hear pretty well in general, but the frequencies of chewing and crawling under bark, their ears are especially attuned to that. So they can hear it really well without having to put their head up to a tree trunk. And so they fly around, and you can kind of see them cocking their heads and look around when you watch them. Mm-hmm. And that is probably them figuring out, all right, what am I hearing? Where am I hearing it? And then they can peck there.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting, though, is, again, their ears have had to adapt from that constant pecking, the constant vibrations from pecking, because hearing is our ears picking up vibrations. So the inner ears have a much narrower shape than other birds, which seems to limit the vibrations that occur in it when they're pecking. But despite this, they still seem to have equivalent hearing abilities to birds of similar sizes. So they can reduce the vibrations, it appears, when they're pecking, but they can still hear really just as well as any other bird that's the same size as them, which is important because they need to find their food for one thing. But they also, like most birds, defend their territory with sound. So you'll often hear them calling. That's kind of the bird version of yelling, "Get off my yard!"
Yeah, and the pileated's unmistakable. That is such a loud.
That's such a good one. And then they drum. And that's often, if you hear drumming on a metal part of your house or on a loud tree, that's another way woodpeckers are telling other woodpeckers, hey, stay away. When woodpeckers peck for insects, it's pretty quiet. Mm-hmm. When you hear them pecking,
they're hunting, they're being stealthy.
Exactly. They don't want to give away their position predators. But when you hear them pecking, that's them announcing their presence. So if you actually hear the pecking, that's a territory call. So if you have a particularly loud part of your house they drum on, it's territory. If they're pecking quietly at your house, you're getting really frustrated because there's all these little tiny holes in your house and whatnot.
You might have a bigger problem.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the woodpeckers are just a symptom. Mm-hmm. The problem is you've got insects in your siding, and that is what they're going after.
That's why it's nice to have a brick house.
I suppose. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more adaptations.
Oh, I think we should talk about let's do the toes.
The toes? All right. What do you want to say about the toes?
Well, we covered this a little bit, and we almost used it as our nature word. So we've had so many nature words. We're like, did we use that already?
We should make a list one of these
So this
years.
Could be like a pop question of like, what do you think about woodpeckers' feet? We would have used in a previous podcast talking about birds.
I would guess, but I'm the one that wrote the script, so it wouldn't be a fair guess.
So we're just giving a dramatic pause there for our listeners to be like, what is it? But it's that, and again, I'll probably pronounce it wrong, zygodactyl.
I think you got it.
Good, right. That one I feel like I can handle. So if you remember that, we talked about it in ospreys, and that was an adaptation of how they can carry fish through the air, right? Because if they carried it, how birds' feet normally are,
Yeah.
that'd be a lot of restriction and friction with the flying through the air.
Absolutely.
But they're able to move their toes and actually hold the fish so that it's parallel with them and zip through the air a lot more. So this is something that woodpeckers can do, but it's not for carrying fish through the air.
It isn't. What is it for?
So yes, you've never seen a woodpecker carrying a fish around. So this is more for them to think of how that drilling and how other birds, their behaviors are. So for that woodpecker to be able to grip on strongly onto the trees with their sharp claws, they need that leverage of front and back.
Mm-hmm.
So that, again, that's a pivoting motion. And we didn't mention this with the tail feathers. The tail feathers help with this as well.
The tail feathers are springy and stiff, so they actually there's a spring that acts as a third leg, and then that combined with the holding onto the claws. Because it's really hard to peck at a tree and not fall out of the tree if you don't have arms to wrap around it.
Yeah.
I challenge our listeners to go climb a tree, hold on with just your toes, and hit your head against the tree.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes. And if you send us videos, extra credit.
We
Extra
take no credit for any injuries. And the other thing is the one of the back toes, the back toe is smaller than the other toes, and the other backwards facing toe 4, can swivel to the front if needed. And remember, this was the same thing with ospreys, that they can change position of them.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's just amazing. And I love how we've talked about beak, tongue, ears, tail, toes.
Hearing,
all of those are all of those are needed to effectively peck at trees and get their food and make their homes. You get rid of any one of those adaptations, the woodpecker is going to have a much harder time surviving. You know, if you didn't have the specialized beak, they couldn't have survived pecking 25 times a second. Without the zygodactyl toes, when they pecked at the tree, they'd fall out of the tree and they couldn't make the holes. I love the connections that come from all those adaptations and how clearly we can see they work together. And just as these adaptations are all connected together and help them survive, woodpeckers themselves are connected to the forest. They rely on the forest, and the forest creatures rely on them in order to survive. They need fungi in order to make their nesting homes. Their nesting holes become homes for other insects, and may even help fungi enter a tree to make new spots where they can make nesting holes in the future. And so, while they evolved to live in forests, how do they do in suburban landscapes? Dr. Jorge Tomasevic, research coordinator at Austral University of Chile, discusses the research he did in Washington to find out how well they actually do in a suburban landscape.